Welcome back to another section. In this one, we're going to be applying the material instance that we made in the last section to our landscape. And we'll also create layer infos for us to be able to paint on. And we'll also paint the landscape a little bit, but we're not going to get into too much detailing because once we sculpt the landscape, that is when we'll detail our paint. So let's get started. Now I have deleted the previous landscape that I have made, so if you still have that, you can delete that because we're going to be creating another landscape which is going to have a little denser vertices, so the paint will be smoother, and we'll also have it a little bit smaller because we're going to be using nanite displacement so your Unreal doesn't crash. So let's actually go into our landscape. Let's create a new landscape over here. Now here we're going to change our section size to about 127. Now this is too big, so let's scale it down to about 15. And now we'll have denser polygons, but also smaller landscapes. So I think I like the size of this for now. Let's move this around here and let's create. Now we have our landscape, but to apply the landscape material, let's click on this. Let's actually zero out our location of the Z-axis. So hit 0. Now to apply the landscape material, select the landscape, scroll down, choose your material instance landscape matte, drag and drop into the landscape material socket. Now once you have done this, you will see that the landscape is having some artifacts. It's just blue right now. That is because we haven't created layer info for our textures. So in our landscape folder, let's create a new folder called layer infos. Now let's go to landscape mode again, and in paint you'll see 3 layers that we have created. Now layer 1, layer 2 and layer 3. We have to create layer infos for now because if you click on this, you'll see no layer infos right now. So you click on the create layer info and hit the weight blended layer normal, and now locate the layer info folder that we just created and just click on save. Now once you do that, you'll see our texture is being applied nicely. But right now we cannot paint the layer 2 yet because we haven't created layer info. So let's create that for all 3 of them. So let's save, and here as well. Now we have created all of the layers. So before we get into painting, let's actually paint down all of the layers so that we can see and manipulate how they look. So let's select layer 2, have a paint tool, tool strength 1, and change the size to about 300. Paint this over here. Now it works. Layer 3 as well. Paint this over here. Now it will work. Now we'll have to adjust the tiling size and the texture. Right now it has too much specularity in it. So let's go back into our landscape and open up material instance over here. Now let's make this a little bit smaller. And here in our layer 1, we have our specular. Let's change this to 0. Now it looks a lot better. And sorry, my Siri popped up when I said 0. Anyway, so we have this specular 1, but right now the tiling is too small. So we're gonna turn on the tiling 1 and change this to 0.2 or maybe even 0.1. Now this looks good. Same as for layer 2. Let's tile this to 0.2 around there, or even 0.1. That looks alright. Let's see if we can change up the specular. Sorry, let's change up the specular for now. Let's set it to 0. And let's see if we can do tint color and tint amount. So let's change this to something orangey brown. Let's change our tint amount to something like this. Oh, that's a lot. Now, this is why material instances are very useful, because you can change so many parameters at once. Now, as for our ground, let's change our specular to 0 and tiling to 0.1 again. And now we have this. That looks alright, but we want to make sure that this is a little bit darker. So let's change this to kinda dark brown, like that, and let's tint it like this, like that. That looks alright. Maybe tiling even 0.05. But that's good. Okay, now to see if your nanite work, you have to click on this and go into nanite, and then you have to enable nanite, and you have to build data. Now remember to save this first, because sometimes Unreal Engine can crash, so make sure you save this first before you do anything else. So once you have saved, you can enable nanite again and click on build data, and once that is done, you'll see the displacement being affected. Right now the displacement is too high, so let's go into our material, base material, and click on this, and if you scroll down, you'll see nanite and displacement over here. The magnitude is too far up right now, so let's change this to 1. Let's hit save. It'll take a while, and now this is still too high, so let's change this to about 0.3. Let's hit save. This is looking alright, but we still need to make sure that this is around acceptable level, so around 0.1. Save this again. Now this is quite alright. We have some displacement over here. Looks good. So there you have it. You have a nanite displaced ground, and as you can see, the details are popping up quite nicely. So yeah, let's actually get painting. So let's go into landscape and then select layer 3, hold shift and paint. That will delete. For layer 2 as well, hold shift and paint. That will delete. So let's say we have a church around here. We want the path leading to the church. So let's tone this down to about 0.3 and our brush size to about 100. So just as wide as this character. So let's paint this path swerving like this. Oh, that's the wrong texture, so let's delete this for now. We want to select the dirt path and then change our brush size to about this, and then let's paint this. Our path leading like so. I like the inconsistency when it comes to painting like this. Leave some part out. That looks pretty good. So we're going to leave some part out like that. Shift delete again. And then we can have a path like that. And we can even add some rock textures to some of the parts. So make the brush size a little bit smaller. That. Maybe by the edges of this path, like a transition sort of thing. Now this looks alright. You can mess around with your painting and see how everything look. And in the next part, we're gonna sculpt the landscape finally, and we're gonna paint in even further. So if your landscape is, if your Unreal Engine viewport is lagging a bit, you can disable nanite again and turn it back on once you're done with everything. So I'll see you in the next part.